All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD 1000 Web Development Technologies course, I've been creating a series of video presentations that are based on the Mozilla Developer Network Learn Web Development series. I'm in the JavaScript section, and we're under the building blocks and build your own function. So, it says, with most of the essential theory dealt with in the previous article, this article provides practical experience. Here you'll get some practice building your own custom function, and it'll explain some details along the way. Now this may even seem, in some ways at least, more simplistic than the example that I just went through, but I want to go back and do a better job of going through what's actually in the examples in this series. So the custom function we're going to build will be called display message. It will display a custom message box on a web page and will act as a customized replacement for a browser's built-in alert function. We've seen this before, but to just refresh our memory, it says type the following into your browser's console or on any page you'd like. So if I just grab this and I go back let's just go back to the one that we just had, which was right here. All right, and I right mouse click. Yeah, I can. That's fine. Boom. Well, I guess it's. Well, let me do this. No, it doesn't like this kind of program for what I'm trying to do here. Let's see. I'm going to get rid of this one and just start up something new. How's that? In fact, what I should actually be able to do is just come in here and just go to cnn.com and right mouse click and choose inspect and go over to the console. And you'll notice they've got a lot of errors and mistakes and stuff in theirs. But if I paste this in, alert this is a message, we get this is a message. Okay, that's all I wanted to show you. Alrighty. The alert function takes a single argument, and that's the string that you want in the alert box, okay? The function is limited. You can alter the message, but you can't easily vary anything else, such as the color, the icon, maybe things where it's going to be placed on the screen or whatever. It says we'll build one that will prove to be more fun. This example should work in modern browsers fine, but the styling might look funny and a little different in older browsers. We'd recommend doing this. Well, I'm doing it in Chrome, so it's fine. It says to begin with, let's put together a basic function. All right. Start by accessing function start.html. So let's grab that, and that's what we'll work with. Let's close all the other ones that we had open here previously. And we'll just come over to here. There we go. All right. And what did they call theirs? They called it function start, and that's a fine enough name. We'll just save it to the desktop. So function start.html. All right. So right now it's just got a button in there that says display message box, which will not be operational because there's no code with the button. So there it is. Okay, fine. Good start. Next, add the following inside of the script element. It's already in there, I believe. So let's look. Nope, it's not in there. So we will put it in right now. All right. Now, it's still not going to do anything because there's no code inside of there. Again, we start off with the keyword function, followed by the name of the function, a set of parentheses, and in this case, there's nothing being passed into the function, so it's an empty set of parentheses. Finally, add the following code inside of the curly braces. So let's add that, and then we'll go back and take a look at it. So that goes here, right there. And then we'll move this stuff over as well. Well, first, before we do anything, let's see if that changed anything in our actual function when we run it. Doesn't look like it. And do we get any errors? No. Well, then that's at least it. That's a good sign, right? Okay. So what do we have in here? Const HTML equals document.query selector. So it's grabbing whatever we've got in our HTML. All right, const panel, we're creating a div. All right, we're setting a class that's going to be called message box, and we're appending that to our div, which was our panel. Okay. Then message, we're having a paragraph in here that says this is a message box, and we're adding that. Then we're going to have a close button, which will have an X on it. Okay, I see all that stuff that's in there. Again, I just want to follow what they've been talking about in here. So it says the first line uses the DOM application program interface or API function query selector. So this one right here. To select the HTML element and store a reference to it in a constant called HTML. We'll be able to do things with that as it says there later on. The next section uses the document create element to create a div and store a reference to it in a constant called panel. As it says, this element will be the outer container for our message box. All right. We then use another DOM API function called element.setAttribute to set a class attribute on the panel with a value of message box to make it easier to style this. As it says, if you look at the CSS on the page, you'll notice that we are using the .messageBox class selector to style the message box and to style its contents. Finally, we call the DOM function node.appendChild, which nests one element inside of another. We specify that the div as the child we want to append inside of the HTML element. We need to do this as the element we created won't just magically appear on its own. We need to specify, as it says, where to put it. The next two sections make use of the same create element and append child we were just talking about, but it now works with two different elements, those being a paragraph and a button. And as it says, it inserts them in the div as well. We use the text content property, which represents the text content, to insert a message inside of the paragraph and place an X in it. That X is what we're going to click when we want to actually close our message box. Finally, as mentioned here, we use the global event handlers onClick, and we set it up so that when the button is clicked, some code is run to delete the whole panel from the page. In other words, to close the message box. Now, I don't know, did I have all of this? It looks like it. Yeah, I think so. All right. Finally, we use the onClick handler to make it so that when the box is clicked, some code is run. Yeah, we just mentioned that. So briefly, as it says right here, the onClick handler is a property available on the button. Really, you can use an onClick handler. You can click anything that's on a page. Here it's being set to a function to specify the code to run when the button is clicked. As it says when we talk about the events section, which we're getting almost to, we'll talk about this in more depth and breadth of coverage. We're making the onClick event handler equal to an anonymous function, all right, which says basically just run this when we click it. So basically, This whole block of code is generating a block of HTML that's going to look pretty much like this. And it's putting it on the page. It says this was a lot of code to work through, so don't worry if you don't understand every part of it. All right. Now it says try including the following below your function call to call it. So the problem with this, as it currently exists in here, all right, we've got the code, but we're never calling it. So it says to come in here and do this, call display message. Now, unlike what we had before, let's come back in here, let's close this, and let's refresh and run it again. This is a message box. When we click the X, it goes away. All right, so we've got something. Close that. As it says, this line invokes the function, making it run immediately. When you save your code and reload it in the browser, you should see a little message box appear only once. We are calling it only once. Now open your browser development tools, go to the console and type the line again, and we should see it again. Well, let's check. So bring up the tools, come into here, let's close this, and let's come into our console, and let's call display message again. All right, I thought at least we'd need the paren. There it is. See if we happens if we call it without the paren. We don't get anything. Nothing happens. It just shows us the code. Now, a couple things. That was neat. First of all, it says undefined. All functions in JavaScript return a value. Well, we don't have a return statement in here, so undefined is what's returned. Second, if we just type in the name of the function itself, by default, the console shows us the code that's in here. That's kind of neat. So again, if we want to run this again, we just type in display message with the parentheses. Try that again. So let's close it. Come back into our console. There's display message, hit enter, and there it is again. Okay. So far, so good. It says we probably want this to appear in response to the user and system actions. In a real application, it would probably be called in response to new data being available or an error having occurred or something else. In this demo, we'll get the message box to appear when the user clicks the button. So, delete the previous line of code you added. So in other words, this call, let's just comment it out. We'll know whether or not that worked because when we come back here and we remove this and we refresh, that's not there anymore. That's exactly what should have happened. Next, we'll select the button and store a reference to it. Add the following above the function definition. So add that right here. What is that? Well, it's basically setting btn equal to query selector for the button. What's the button? Well, you already know what the button is. That's it there. All right. Okay, what else do we have here? Finally, add the following line below the previous one. So this is saying when you call onClick, call display message. It is not calling it. It is telling the system when that happens, call that. So now when we run this and we go take this, and now when we refresh and we click this, notice it's being called. That's exactly what we wanted to have happen there. says you might be wondering why we haven't included the parentheses, because that would call it directly. We didn't want to do that. All right, so when I come back, we will improve this function by adding some parameters.